Hello, my name is Ralf Friedrichs. I am an addiction recovery coach and the host of the Take Your Life Back Today show. As an addiction recovery coach, I want to share something about substance abuse. I want to be crystal clear because I want to leave an everlasting impact upon you. Just imagine being buried alive. Let's say you're in a coffin, but you know you're alive. You don't know how to open the coffin and push the enormous weight of the dirt upon the lid. You think about giving up and waiting for death to arrive. But you also think, let me just maybe bang on the lid and unsettle the dirt upon the top of the coffin. And maybe, just maybe, someone might notice and start digging their way down to me to help me. That is what it's like to find yourself at the lowest point of drug and alcohol addiction. You know you need help. You know you can't do it on your own. You just don't know where to turn to get that help. In reality, there are people who can help you standing nearby your grave. But you don't know that. You just think and know you will be dying. Usually, though, people don't think of death when they're habitually using drugs. In order to defeat an addiction, you have to be great at repressing the fear of death. I often ask you, my audience, did it ever cross your mind before you used that you just might overdose? With this, I leave you with one other thought. Don't be that person laying in the coffin, banging on the lid, hoping that someone might hear you and start digging their way down to you. Take the first step today and call me at 844-405-HELP and let me help you take your life back. Folks, before your life is gone. People like Larry Geist from the Geist Academy at 516-458-2741, that's 516-458-2741, will help you with your addiction. He is like a bridge, a drawbridge between recovery and addiction, or I should say addiction and recovery. He will help you hand in hand come up with a strategy to help have you live with sobriety, have you live through recovery. He will concentrate on today and tomorrow. He nor I always tell our clients, it does not matter where you came from. What matters is where you are going. Folks, call him. Use Larry Geist from the Geist Academy as a crutch in your battle with your addiction, your battle with depression, your battle with low self-esteem, your battle with any life issue. Call him at 516-458-2741. Let Larry Geist help you take your life back. GlobalEyeglasses.com, they are focused on saving you money. And I want you to be able to focus on watching my videos. So go to www.globaleyeglasses.com where they have over 1,200 frames, whether plastic, metal, or rimless, or half frames, all available there. They have all the same type of lenses that you would find at your local freestanding brick and mortar optical shops, such as progressives, transition, photochromatics, line bifocals, no line bifocals, transitions, like I said, polarization, coatings like anti-reflecting coating, UV coating, scratch coating. Again, they have all the needs that you need in your optics to be able to see better with your glasses that your freestanding brick and mortar local optical shops have, but the difference is at a fraction of the cost. And you don't even need to leave home. All you have to do is go to www.globaleyeglasses.com and let them focus on saving you money. Folks, I've been concentrating lately on family dealing with addictions, on teenagers dealing with addictions, and now that we're in the presidential race right now for the future, I was listening to Christie tell a story about how he had a little clique of friends that they went to school together, and the most prominent friend that they graduated from law school with was the most successful, best looking one, the better shaped one. And this person, during one of his runs, hurt his back and got pain medication from the doctor and became so addicted to the pain medication that he was utilizing it each and every day. And back years ago, Governor Christie and his wife received the phone call that they knew they were going to get eventually, because his friend was addicted to the painkillers, that they found him dead with an empty bottle of oxycodone and a quart of vodka, empty quart of vodka. And my point here is that a lot of people go through injuries in life and have a lot of pain, and they get a hold of these painkillers from their doctors legally, and they start abusing it and become addicted to it. And not even if they didn't get it, they find it in their own medicine cabinets at home, maybe because mommy or daddy have injuries or some sort of pain. So today I want to share prescription drug deaths, 2 stories, and these are true stories. And I read about them a while ago, and I thought I'd share them with you. Pete Jackson attended his brother-in-law's funeral along with his daughter Emily 6 years ago. He never dreamed it would be the last day of his daughter's life. It's so tragic, just something you would never ever expect, said Pete Jackson. Instead of going home to Chicago's suburb of Arlington Heights after the funeral, Emily, the daughter, 18, spent the night with her cousins. That night, she made a deadly, very deadly decision. She took oxycodone, a single prescription pill that her cousin offered to her while drinking alcohol. She went to sleep that night and never woke up. She died of respiratory depression. The simply stopped breathing. The oxycodone that Emily took belonged to her uncle, who had died of cancer, who she just went to the funeral for. While taking one pill and dying is very rare, dying accidentally after using painkillers and inappropriately is common. According to the U.S. Centers of Disease and Control Prevention, 1 person dies from drug overdose every 19 minutes. About 28,754 Americans died after accidentally overdosing on legal or illegal drugs just in 2009. According to the CDC, about half of those deaths were involved with prescription, legally prescribed painkillers. Those numbers are significant enough to make prescription drugs one of the leading causes of accidental death in this country alone. It's a statistic that has led some experts to call prescription drug abuse an epidemic. If you asked any guy in the street what was the leading cause of death on the streets, they would have guessed gunshot wounds or car accidents, said Tom McKellen, co-founder of Treatment Research Institute, a non-profit organization advocating improvements in substance abuse policies. They would never imagine that pharmaceutical or opiates, painkillers, would be the #1 cause. America's problem with prescription drugs is unacceptable. The problem we're dealing with prescription drug abuse is having to balance those patients who abuse prescription drugs and those millions of patients that benefit from these medications because they have a need that they need to tackle with these prescription drugs, and these drugs were legally prescribed by their doctors. Emily Jackson was on the road to recovery after 2002 diagnosis of thyroid cancer and undergoing these 3 surgeries to fight it. She and her cousin had done a bit of drinking that night she died, Pete Jackson said, but he is sure that she has not taken oxycodone, she would still be alive today. I've never tried to make it sound like Emily was innocent, Jackson said. What I want people to understand about Emily's tragedy is how easily this can happen and how dangerous these drugs are. You play Russian roulette. The prescription painkillers Emily Jackson took is a respiratory depressant that slows your breathing. That is in combination with alcohol, another respiratory depressant, overwhelmed her brain, which stopped giving her heart and lungs a signal to keep functioning. In many ways, you play Russian roulette when you mix those painkillers with alcohol. Adolescents and young adults are particularly at risk because they feel invincible. You have no idea the respiratory consequences of any group of substances, and then you put all together and the risks go up exceptionally high. It is not an issue amongst teenagers alone. In fact, rates of accidentally overdose among teens was still the major public health problem are actually now going down, and in fact males between my age group between the 40s and 50s who start off with prescription for back pain and die from an accidentally overdose several years later are dying in significant numbers and the numbers are going up. Could you imagine a worker that popped their back and we started to put them on pain medication and 3 years later they were dead? That's devastating, isn't it? But it's reality throughout the U.S. The devastation began for Steve Rumler when he got a prescription for nerve pain radiating through his leg and back. It started when he was 28 years old. For the next 9 years, the Minneapolis man endured major pain. It was not until 2005 that Rumler was 37 years old that a doctor prescribed hydrocodone to address his pain, along with clonazepam, benzodiazepine, and anti-anxiety medication to relieve the injury-related anxiety. Family members said it was the first time in nearly a decade Rumler felt relief from the life-altering pain he endured. But that relief was short-lived. In a journal entry, Rumler said of all the drugs, at first they were a lifeline. Now they are a noose around my neck, he writes. It is common sentiment and a common scenario, according to Myers, who say Rumler's case is far too common. A person genuinely needs opiates but becomes addicted to relief that it provides. The person that is on them for legitimate reasons and the kid who experiments with them seem very different, but the outcome is the same, said Myers. And they are very difficult to get off. I think we probably need to do a better job of pain management in this country. By 2009, Rumler had sunk into dependence and eventually into addiction. At the advice of his family, he enrolled in 2 addiction treatment programs and seemingly had a handle of his addiction. But in July 2011, just 45 days after completing the final stage of his rehab, Rumler relapsed and died at the age of 43. Rumler still had outstanding prescriptions for hydrocodone and clonazepam at the time of his death, and the empty prescription bottles were in the house when police arrived. His official cause of death was mixed drug toxicity caused by opiates and benzodiazepine. A medical investigator said that there is no way to tell what Rumler ingested immediately before his death. Like Emily Jackson, Rumler stopped breathing in his sleep. Better communication is needed. The key to combating accidental deaths related to prescription drugs is creating a better dialogue among doctors, patients, and pharmacies. All three have to come together and communicate in a more effective 100% way. When someone is given prednisone, a steroid commonly used to treat inflammatory diseases, they are giving very strict instructions. They're very direct about what will happen if the patient misuses it. You don't see that with pain medication. Why don't we see that? Maybe if we did a better job with how we communicate with the effects of prescription medications when we don't take them the way we are prescribed, or if you mix other substances with them, maybe we wouldn't have the number of people that are in these crises. We need to make instructions. We need to teach people how to mix or how not to mix anything with the painkillers. Maybe we wouldn't have the number of people dying each and every day. This means pharmaceutical companies would carefully monitor and control the supply they produce. Doctors would be more rigorous with patient screening, including possibly urinalysis exams before issuing or extending a prescription. You don't want to stop the use of opiates because that would be stupid, but you need better management. There are people that need the opiates, but it's how these people are educated and how the doctors are so freely giving it out that is important. Information exchange is the main thing. Pharmacies have to know that what everyone is getting prescribed these days. Meanwhile, people such as Pete Jackson are left to deal with the aftermath of prescription drug abuse. After his daughter's death, Jackson began researching what he could do to prevent similar tragedy from striking another household. In 2007, Jackson joined forces with other bereaved families to create advocates for reform of prescription opiates. For more information on prescription drug use, visit medicineabuseproject.org. People like Pete Jackson and Mr. Rumbler. Well, people like Pete Jackson, whose daughter actually overdosed. Her name was Emily. After going to her uncle's funeral, because her uncle died of addiction, overdose of opiates, she attends his funeral, decides to go home that night to her cousin's house, and does the unthinkable. She takes her uncle's opiate pill, mixes it with drinks, and never wakes up. Dies in her sleep. Can you imagine that? You attend your uncle's funeral who just died of overdose of opiates. You take one of his pills from his house and die the same way. Emily Jackson was on a road to recovery after she was diagnosed of thyroid cancer in 2002. She had a chance of life again. It's like Russian roulette, folks. The prescription painkiller Emily Jackson took is a respiratory depressant that slows the breathing. That in combination with alcohol that Emily mixed is another respiratory depressant. Combined, they killed her. Steve Rumbler hurt his back at the age of 28. Doctor prescribed opiate pills. In the beginning, it became a lifesaver for him. As time went on, he became addicted. His family was able to help him, put him through rehab. 45 days left of rehab. He relapses and dies. These are just two stories. There are thousands, millions of stories like this in the U.S. and in the world. The doctors have to pre-screen their patients before prescribing. They have to teach their patients before prescribing these pills. How do we educate ourselves on how not to mix certain medication with certain things we take in conjunction with that medication? I personally feel that if we took each and every patient that has a prescription for any painkiller and made him sit through a certain educational class, that it might help us. Put the information in front of them. Show them what can happen. If Emily had only known that the pill, that critical pill that she took that night at her cousin's house, was the same pill that her uncle, that she just went to the funeral that morning for, also took, the same pills that killed him, maybe she wouldn't have done it. Had she known that because the pill that she took slows the breathing, that by taking it with alcohol will also slow the breathing, and in conjunction they stopped her breathing, maybe she wouldn't have done it. Folks, remember, sober today promises a better tomorrow. Please teach your children not to take drugs and alcohol by leading by example. Show them that you don't need it, and if you absolutely need it, two things you should do is maybe seek help, but also don't do it in front of them. I hope to God, no matter where you are, folks, that you have the best day of your life, but I hope and I pray each and every show that no matter where you are, that you have a sober rest of your life, and may God bless you.